I had been looking forward to this trip for months. A week off the grid, no cell service, no emails, no distractions. Just me, the wilderness, and the winding trails of the backcountry. Jessica had been hesitant at first, claiming she wasn't a fan of hiking for days on end, but I had reassured her this was something I needed. A break from the chaos, a chance to clear my mind, reconnect with nature, and maybe, in some way, reset myself. She had smiled, given me a hug, and told me she'd hold down the fort. I had no reason to doubt her. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. The morning I left, everything felt normal. Too normal, perhaps. Jessica kissed me on the cheek, told me to be safe, and promised to call if she needed anything. I told her I'd be unreachable, but that I'd check in once I got back into town. She waved as I pulled out of the driveway, her silhouette shrinking in my rearview mirror as I drove off. I had no idea that when I returned, everything would feel different. The house was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't obvious at first, just little things. The shoes by the door weren't arranged the way I usually left them. The air smelled slightly different, not bad, just altered. Jessica always burned the same lavender candle in the evenings, yet the scent that lingered in the air was something else, something unfamiliar. I chalked it up to paranoia, the kind that settles in after spending days away from home. I told myself I was overthinking. Then, I noticed the wine bottle, a nearly empty one sitting on the kitchen counter, next to a pair of glasses. Jessica wasn't much of a drinker. We kept wine for special occasions, and even then, she'd only have a glass before switching to water. But this bottle, this wasn't ours. The label was different. I ran my fingers over the rim of the nearest glass, feeling the faint residue of dried red liquid. Someone had been here. I told myself it was probably just a friend, maybe her sister. No reason to jump to conclusions. I carried my bags upstairs and stopped in my tracks. The bed was made too neatly. Jessica never made the bed this perfectly. I stepped closer, running my hand over the smooth surface of the comforter, and that's when I noticed the second pillow. It was on my side of the bed, slightly flattened, as if someone else had been sleeping there. My stomach tightened. "Jessica!" I called out, forcing my voice to sound steady. She appeared at the bedroom door, smiling, a little too bright. "You're home. How was the trip?" I hesitated before answering. "Good. Long, tiring." I studied her expression. She looked happy, but there was something in her eyes, something that didn't quite match the excitement in her voice. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me, pressing her face into my shoulder. "I missed you." I didn't return the embrace right away. "Yeah, of course." She pulled back, brushing a hand through her hair. It was weird being here alone. Alone. The word stuck in my head, bouncing around like an echo in an empty room. I could have let it go, ignored the tight feeling in my chest, but something wasn't right. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while Jessica slept beside me. My mind replayed the little details over and over. The misplaced shoes, the different scent, the wine, the second pillow. I wanted to believe her, to convince myself I was imagining things. But I knew, deep down, that something had happened while I was gone, and I was going to find out what. I woke up the next morning with the same uneasy feeling in my chest. Jessica was already up, moving around in the kitchen, humming to herself. It was as if everything were normal, too normal. The way she floated around, cheerful and chatty, made me feel like I was losing my mind. Maybe I was reading too much into things. Maybe I was exhausted from the trip, still adjusting to being back home. But my gut told me something was off. I walked into the kitchen, watching as she poured herself a cup of coffee. "You're in a good mood." She turned, smiling. "Why wouldn't I be? You're home." I studied her, waiting for some crack in the performance. "Anything happen while I was gone?" She shrugged, blowing on her coffee. "Not really. Work was busy. I had dinner with Rachel one night. Other than that, it was just me and Netflix." "Rachel. That was convenient." I made a mental note to ask Rachel about it later. "You didn't have anyone over?" She raised an eyebrow. "Why would I?" I leaned against the counter, staring at the wine bottle still sitting there. "You had some wine." Jessica followed my gaze and let out a small laugh. "Oh yeah, I was in the mood for a glass. Y figúrate detrás de myself." Since when do you drink an entire bottle? Her smile wavered for a split second before she covered it with a laugh. I didn't finish it all at once. It was over a few nights. I nodded slowly, pretending to believe her. Right. She changed the subject quickly, launching into a story about work, as if steering the conversation away would make me forget. But I didn't forget. I tucked away every little detail, every inconsistency, and let them simmer in my mind. Later that day, while she was out running errands, I took the opportunity to look around. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to know. I started with a laundry hamper, digging through clothes. Nothing unusual. I checked her closet, her drawers. Then, I moved to the guest room, a place we rarely used. That's where I found the first real clue. A receipt, crumpled up in a nightstand drawer. I smoothed it out, my eyes scanning the details. A purchase from a local boutique, men's cologne. Expensive, a brand I didn't wear. My pulse quickened. Jessica never bought me cologne. She always said she liked my natural scent, that I didn't need anything artificial. So why would she suddenly buy a bottle? And why wasn't it in the house? I checked the trash can in the guest bathroom. Inside was torn wrapping paper, metallic and sleek, the kind used for expensive gifts. My stomach clenched. Who was it for? I could have confronted her right then and there, but that would be too easy. If she was hiding something, she'd have an excuse ready. No, I needed more. I needed to catch her off guard. Instead, I came up with an idea. A petty, vindictive idea. I grabbed the cologne receipt and stuffed it into my pocket. Then, I went to the bathroom and rummaged through the cabinet until I found what I was looking for, a small, clear bottle of rubbing alcohol. I smiled to myself. If Jessica had bought this as a gift for someone, that someone would be smelling a little different. I took my time, making sure the seal on the cologne bottle was carefully broken and refilled with enough alcohol to ruin the scent, but not enough to raise suspicion. I resealed the box, wrapping it back up with the same crumpled paper I'd found in the trash. Then, I placed it back exactly where I found it. Jessica would have no idea. I sat back on the couch, waiting for her to return, pretending like nothing was wrong. But in the back of my mind, I knew this was just the beginning. I had a feeling this wasn't going to end well, for either of us. Jessica came home that evening with shopping bags in her hands and a breezy smile on her face, as if nothing in the world was wrong. I watched from the couch, casually scrolling through my phone, pretending not to care. Get anything good? I asked, barely looking up. Just some new shoes and a couple of dresses, she said, setting the bags down. Figured I deserved a little retail therapy. Retail therapy. That was rich. She leaned down and kissed my cheek before heading to the bedroom, leaving me alone with my thoughts. My heart pounded with anticipation. The cologne bottle was still hidden away in the guest room, waiting for its moment. I gave a few minutes before following her into the bedroom, keeping my face neutral. Jessica was hanging up one of her new dresses, her back to me. So, I said casually, leaning against the doorframe. You never told me what the special occasion was. She turned, confused. What special occasion? I gestured toward the closet. The gift. You know, the one you wrapped up so nicely. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face before she covered it with a smile. Oh, that? It's for my boss. Her boss. I nodded, keeping my expression blank. Didn't realize you were buying gifts for your boss now. She shrugged. He's been really generous lately. Took the whole office out to dinner last week. I just wanted to say thank you. My fingers curled into my palm. A well-rehearsed excuse. That's thoughtful of you. Right? She smiled again, then turned back to her clothes as if the conversation was over. I let it drop. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept circling back to the cologne, the way she'd lied so smoothly. If I hadn't found a receipt, if I hadn't seen the wrapping paper, I would have believed her. She was good. Too good. The next morning, Jessica was up early, dressed, and ready to leave before I'd even had my coffee. Got a busy day ahead, she said, grabbing her purse. I'll see you later, okay? I forced a smile. Sure. Have fun at work. She kissed me quickly, then left. I waited until I heard the car pull out of the driveway before moving. I went straight to the guest room, my heart hammering as I checked the nightstand drawer. The box was gone. She had taken it. I imagined the moment. The gift exchange. the other man unwrapping it, thanking her, putting it on, and then the slow realization that something wasn't right. The way his nose would wrinkle, the way Jessica would try to cover her confusion. I wished I could be there to see it. Instead, I did the next best thing. I waited. Hours passed. I busied myself with errands, pretending to be normal. I even texted Jessica once, just to see how long it would take for her to respond. 30 minutes. Short, clipped replies. She was distracted. By the time evening rolled around, I was more than ready for the show. Jessica walked in looking tense. Her smile was tight, her movement stiff as she set her purse down. Hey, I closed my laptop and leaned back, stretching. Hey, how was work? She hesitated just for a second. Busy. I grinned. Did your boss like the cologne? A beat of silence. Then, too quickly, she nodded. Yeah, he said it was nice. I let the lies settle between us, heavy and suffocating. Good, I said smoothly. I just wanted to make sure. She turned away, heading for the kitchen, and I followed. Hey, you want to open a bottle of wine tonight? Celebrate something? Jessica froze for a fraction of a second before turning back to me. Celebrate what? I smiled. Us. Being together. For the first time, there was something in her eyes that wasn't just caution. It was fear. She knew. She just didn't know how much I knew. And I planned to keep it that way for now. Jessica was acting normal, too normal. That was the first red flag. Over the next few days, I studied her the way a detective might observe a suspect. She laughed at the right moments, answered my questions casually, even went out of her way to kiss me goodbye in the mornings. But something was off. It wasn't just the cologne gift or the lie she had told so smoothly. It was the way she carried herself. She was lighter, as if a weight had been lifted, as if she had a secret that made everything easier to bear. That's when I started looking for evidence. The first place I checked was her phone. Jessica had always been protective of it, but never overly paranoid. She'd leave it face up on the counter while cooking, scroll through social media while sitting next to me on the couch. But now I noticed the subtle changes. The way she kept it in her pocket more often. How she would angle the screen away from me, even when I wasn't looking. One evening, she was in the shower when I took my chance. I grabbed her phone from the nightstand and pressed the power button. Locked, of course. I tried a few possible passcodes, our anniversary, her birthday, even our dog's name. Nothing worked. Then I noticed something else. She had notifications hidden. Normally, when a message popped up, you could see the preview, but now, just a vague message received. Interesting. I put the phone back exactly as I found it and went to the living room, waiting. When Jessica came out of the shower, she walked straight to the nightstand, picked up her phone, and glanced at it. Just for a second. Then she looked at me. I smiled. Everything good? She nodded too quickly. Yeah, just checking the time. Lie. I'll let slide. The next step was her car. That weekend, while Jessica was out running errands, I decided to search her vehicle. I grabbed my own keys and pretended to be heading out too. But instead of leaving, I doubled back and unlocked her car. I checked the usual places first, the glove compartment, the center console, under the seats. Nothing. Then I looked in the trunk. That's when I found it. A second gym bag. Jessica already had a gym bag she used every time she worked out. But this one was different. Smaller, newer. I unzipped it and felt my stomach tighten. Inside were a pair of leggings, a tank top, and running shoes. Completely different from what she normally wore. Why would she need a second set of workout clothes? More importantly, why was she hiding them? I put everything back exactly as I found it and closed the trunk. When she got home that evening, I watched her. She walked in with her usual smile, carrying a couple of grocery bags. Need help? I asked. She shook her head. I got it. Did you go to the gym today? She hesitated. Just for a second. No, why? I shrugged. Just wondering. Another lie. I felt like I was circling something big, like a predator watching its prey, waiting for the right moment to pounce. But I wasn't going to jump too soon. No, I needed undeniable proof. That's when I got an idea. The next morning, I decided to follow her. Jessica kissed me goodbye, grabbed her purse, and left for work. I waited a few minutes, then grabbed my keys and tailed her. But she didn't go to work. Instead, she drove across town to a small coffee shop. I parked a few spots away and watched as she walked inside. A few minutes later, a man joined her at the table. I felt my blood go cold. He was tall, fit, with a confident grin. He leaned in when he spoke to her, and she laughed, actually laughed. I clenched the steering wheel, debating whether to storm inside and confront her. But I needed more. So I waited. After 20 minutes, the man stood up. Jessica hugged him. Too long, too familiar. Then he left, and she stayed behind, sipping her coffee as if nothing had happened. That night, I confronted her. "So," I said over dinner, "how was work?" She glanced up at me, completely unaware. "Busy, as usual." I took a slow sip of my drink. "In the coffee shop?" Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "What?" "Histoire de hair." "I saw you." She set her fork down carefully. "You were following me?" I didn't blink. "Who was he?" Jessica swallowed hard, then shook her head. "Oh my God, you're being ridiculous." "Am I?" I leaned forward. "Then tell me. Who was he?" She sighed, exasperated. "His name's Adam. He's a personal trainer. I met him at the gym." "Of course, the gym." I leaned back. "And why didn't you tell me you were meeting him?" Her expression hardened. "Because I knew you'd react like this." "Like what?" "Like I'm doing something wrong." I held her gaze, letting the silence stretch. "Are you?" She scoffed, grabbing her plate and standing up. "I don't have time for this." She walked away, but I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Jessica was slipping, and I could feel it. Lies are never sustainable for long. The more she tried to act normal, the more I saw through the cracks. I wasn't letting this go. The morning after our tense dinner conversation, she was unusually affectionate, kissing me on the cheek before work, touching my arm as she walked by. It was a performance, a desperate attempt to keep the illusion intact. "I was thinking we should go out this weekend," she said, pouring herself coffee. "Just the two of us." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, that's new." She smiled, forced but sweet. "Yeah, we haven't had a date night in a while." It was bait. A distraction. I nodded, playing along. "Sounds great." She relaxed a little, but I wasn't done. "So, are you still working with that trainer?" I asked casually. Jessica didn't even flinch. "Adam?" "Yeah, he's great. He's really helping me with my endurance." I smirked. "Endurance, huh?" She froze just for a second, so quick most people wouldn't notice. But I did. She turned and leaned against the counter, folding her arms. "What's that supposed to mean?" I shrugged. "Nothing. Just that you're really committed. Early morning workouts, late night gym visits, coffee meetings." She rolled her eyes. "I already told you. There's nothing going on." I sipped my coffee, letting her stew in silence. The thing about guilty people is they talk too much. And sure enough, Jessica kept going. "He's married, by the way." I looked up. "Who?" "Adam." She forced a chuckle. "You act like I'm sneaking around with some single guy. He has a wife and a kid." There it was, an unnecessary detail meant to pacify me. She was over-explaining, which meant she was lying. "Good to know," I said, setting my mug down. "Well, I should get to work." She exhaled, relieved. "Yeah, me too." She thought she'd won. That night, I decided it was time to stop playing nice. After she fell asleep, I took her phone. She was a light sleeper, so I moved carefully, watching her breathing to make sure she was in deep sleep. I took it to the bathroom and shut the door. Her phone was locked, but I had a new idea. I grabbed my own phone and searched how to unlock Face ID while someone is sleeping. Turns out it wasn't that hard. I walked back to the bedroom, angled her phone toward her face, and watched as the lock screen dissolved. Unbelievable. I stepped back into the bathroom and went straight to her messages. Most of them were harmless. Group chats, coworkers, even her mom. Then I found Adam. I clicked on their conversation, scrolling past generic texts about workouts and meal plans. But as I went further, the messages changed. "Adam, wish I could see you tonight." "Jessica, me too. I hate sneaking around." "Adam, just a little longer, babe." My blood went cold. I kept scrolling. "Jessica, I can't stop thinking about last time." "Adam, me neither. You're incredible." I clenched my jaw, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to throw it, smash it against the wall, wake her up and shove the evidence in her face. But I didn't, because now I had proof. I took screenshots and sent them to myself, then deleted the sent messages. I put her phone back, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling, seething. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This was reality. Jessica was cheating, but I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I had a better idea. Jessica had no idea that I knew, and I wasn't about to tip her off. If she thought I was clueless, she'd keep making mistakes. The worst thing I could do now was confront her outright. No, I needed to catch her. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. Over breakfast, she scrolled through her phone like always, barely paying attention to me. I might be home late, she said casually. Work's a mess, and I have a session with Adam after. Of course, she did. I took a sip of coffee. No problem. I got a lot to do anyway. She smiled, seemingly relieved that I wasn't prying. That was good. It meant she wasn't being as careful as she should be. The moment she left for work, I sprang into action. I grabbed my laptop and searched for ways to track an iPhone without installing an app. It turned out, if you had someone's Apple ID and password, you could track them through Find My iPhone. Jessica's password? She wasn't as clever as she thought. I knew she used variations of the same few phrases. It took me 5 tries, but eventually I was in. Bingo. Her location was visible, and at that very moment, she was en route to work. But I wasn't interested in her work hours. I needed to know where she was going after. That evening, I waited. Jessica texted me around 6:30. Jessica, hey, running late. Don't wait up for dinner. Me, all good. Love you. I almost laughed as I hit send. By 7:15, she left work. But she didn't head home. Her location showed her near the gym, except she wasn't at the gym. She was a few blocks away at an address I didn't recognize. I grabbed my keys. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to a boutique hotel. Nothing fancy, but discreet. A place for affairs. Her car was parked in the lot. I took a deep breath, gripping the steering wheel. I could go inside, cause a scene, make a fool of her and Adam in front of everyone. But that would be too easy. I needed something bigger. Something permanent. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of her car, then zoomed in on the hotel entrance. A camera. Perfect. If this place had security footage, I could prove everything. I walked inside, approaching the front desk with my most casual, clueless expression. Hey, I think my wife might have left her wallet here earlier. Any chance I could check the security footage? The guy at the counter, a bored-looking kid in his 20s, sighed. Sorry, man. We can't show that to just anyone. I pulled out a $100 bill and slid it across the desk. I'm not just anyone. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he pocketed the bill and turned to the computer. What time? Check the last 15 minutes. He clicked through the footage. And there she was. Jessica, laughing as she walked in. Adam, right beside her, hand on the small of her back. They disappeared down the hall. I clenched my fists. That was all I needed. Any way I can get a copy of that? I asked. The kid looked at me, then at the $100 bill. Another one of those, and I'll pretend I didn't see you take a photo. I pulled out another bill, placed it on the counter, and snapped a picture of the screen. Done. As I walked out, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Control. Jessica had no idea what was coming. And that was exactly how I wanted it. I had the proof. Cold, hard, undeniable evidence. Jessica and Adam weren't just sneaking around. They were comfortable. They thought they were untouchable. That's what got to me the most. How easy it was for them. How natural. How they laughed together, as if there were no consequences. But there would be. I sat in my car outside the hotel for a while, staring at the picture on my phone. The timestamp, the angle, the clear shot of Jessica stepping into that room with him. It was perfect, but I wasn't going to use it just yet. No, I needed something bigger. Jessica still had no idea that I knew. She still thought she was playing me for a fool. That worked to my advantage. I wasn't going to waste that opportunity. The next morning, I acted completely normal. Jessica strolled into the kitchen like nothing had happened. Morning, she said, stretching as she grabbed her coffee. I smiled. Morning. She took a sip, checking her phone. Work is insane right now. I might have to pull some late nights again. Of course. Do what you need to. She nodded, barely paying attention. I watched as she tapped out a message, probably to him. I wondered what she said. Had a great time. Can't wait to see you again. It didn't matter. Soon, none of it would matter. I went about my day, but every free moment was spent planning. I had the when and the where. I needed the how. Jessica had always loved attention. She lived for moments in the spotlight. That's why she always pushed for big public events, social gatherings, anything that made her feel admired. So, that's where I'd ruin her. That night, I set my plan in motion. I emailed her office from an anonymous account, claiming to be an event coordinator interested in sponsoring their annual charity gala. Her company did it every year, a massive networking event with coworkers, clients, and industry professionals. I made the message sound enticing enough. Big donations, big publicity, exactly the kind of thing Jessica wouldn't ignore. And just as I expected, the next morning, she mentioned it over breakfast. Some event group reached out about sponsoring the charity gala, she said. It could be a great opportunity. That sounds incredible, I said, feigning interest. She smiled, already imagining how great she'd look in front of her colleagues. I'll set up a call. I almost felt bad. Almost. The next week was a blur of planning. I coordinated everything. I got in touch with the event's media team, the people responsible for running the slideshows, the guest highlights, the live stream. I sent them a special presentation under the guise of it being part of the sponsorship package. The night before the gala, Jessica was giddy with excitement. She spent hours picking out the perfect dress, making sure she'd be the center of attention. I think this is going to be the best gala yet, she said, twirling in front of the mirror. I forced a smile. I'm sure it will be. She had no clue that, by tomorrow night, she'd wish she never attended. The evening of the event arrived. The ballroom was packed. Cameras flashed, guests mingled, and Jessica glowed under the attention. She introduced me to executives, to clients, to people whose opinions mattered so much to her. Halfway through the night, the event coordinator took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Before we continue, we have a special presentation from one of our generous sponsors. Jessica perked up. She was expecting a corporate video about her success, her team, her achievements. Instead, the screen went dark. Then it flickered to life. A grainy hotel security feed. The timestamp, last week. Jessica and Adam stepping into that hotel room. The room fell silent. Jessica gasped, her face drained of color. The footage played for 5 agonizing seconds before cutting out. Then I stood. Not all partnerships are built on trust, I said, my voice carrying through the stunned audience. But don't worry, Jessica here knows all about making deals behind closed doors. A murmur rippled through the crowd. People turned to stare. Some whispered. Some pulled out their phones. Jessica's lips trembled. Mark, I leaned in. Enjoy your night, I whispered, then walked away, leaving her to face the mess she made. I didn't look back. I didn't stay to see the aftermath. I didn't need to. I had played my part, dropped the final bomb, and walked away. Jessica was left standing in the center of the storm, surrounded by stunned faces, murmuring voices, and people who would never look at her the same way again. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit me like a cleanse. I took a deep breath, letting the tension roll off my shoulders. The weight I had carried for weeks, months, was finally gone. No more second-guessing, no more pretending. I had done what needed to be done. My phone buzzed. A text from a friend who had stayed behind. Dude, Jessica looks like she's about to collapse. People are grilling her. It's bad. I smirked. Good. Another message. This one from her. Mark, we need to talk. I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in whatever weak excuse she tried to spin. Instead, I drove home, opened a bottle of whiskey, and enjoyed the silence. The house, our house, felt different now. It was still peaceful, no longer filled with the tension that had hung over it for so long. It was mine again. An hour passed, then another. I knew Jessica would come. She wasn't the type to let things go. And sure enough, at exactly 11:42 p.m., I heard a car screech into the driveway. The front door burst open a second later. Mark, I stayed seated, swirling my glass. You're home late, I said coolly. Jessica stormed in, still in her gown from the gala. Except now, it was wrinkled, her hair disheveled, her makeup smudged from what looked like tears. She looked desperate. What the hell was that? She shouted. You humiliated me in front of everyone. I took a sip of whiskey. Yeah, that was the point. She stared at me, stunned. She choked. You ruined my reputation. My career. My life. I I set my glass down and leaned forward. No, Jessica, you ruined your life when you decided to sneak off with Adam. I just made sure everyone saw the truth. She swallowed hard. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. I cut her off. I understand that you lied to me for months. I understand that every late night, every extra meeting, every excuse, it was all fake. She clenched her fists. I made a mistake. I laughed. A mistake. I shook my head. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did, that was a choice. Over and over again. Jessica's lip quivered. I never meant to hurt you. Then why did you? Silence. She had no answer. I stood up, towering over her. You didn't just betray me. You made me feel like I was going crazy. You let me question myself, my instincts. You let me think that I was the problem. But I wasn't. You were. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't, I said sharply. I don't want to hear it. There's nothing you can say that changes what you did. She sniffled, wiping at her eyes. Can we fix this? I let out a breath. Fix it. I gestured around the room. Do you see a way to fix this, Jessica? Because I don't. I see a woman who threw away her marriage for some pathetic office fling. Her eyes flashed with something. Anger, desperation, denial. It didn't mean anything. I scoffed. Then why do it? She hesitated, but I saw the truth in her face. Because she liked it. Because it made her feel wanted. Because it was fun. And I was done. I want you out, I said firmly. Her head snapped up. Wait, tomorrow morning, your stuff needs to be gone. I don't care where you go, but you're not staying here. Panic spread across her face. Mark, please, let's talk about this. We build a life together. No, I build a life. You set it on fire. She grabbed my arm, squeezing tight. We can get past this. I yanked away. No, you can live with this. I'm moving on. Her face twisted, shifting from sorrow to fury. You think you're so perfect? You think this makes you some kind of hero? I smirked. No, Jessica. It just makes me free. She let out a frustrated cry, spinning on her heel and storming toward the door. But before she could leave, she turned back, her voice shaking. You're going to regret this. I met her gaze, cold and unwavering. No, Jessica, you are. And with that, she was gone. For good. For the first time in months, I woke up feeling light. No tension in my chest, no knots in my stomach, no lingering paranoia. The house was quiet, peaceful. Mine. Jessica was gone. I half expected to find her curled up on the couch, refusing to leave or making one last plea. But the house was empty. Her keys were gone. A few of her things still lingered. Some clothes, a half-used bottle of perfume on the dresser, a forgotten pair of shoes by the door. Ghosts of a life I no longer wanted. I grabbed a coffee and sat by the window, watching the sunrise. The world outside was moving forward, and so was I. Then my phone buzzed. I sighed, already knowing who it was. Jessica, we need to talk. Please. I stared at the message. Deleted it. An hour later, another text. Jessica, just meet me. One last time. I deserve that much. I scoffed. Deserve? She didn't deserve anything. But I knew Jessica. She wasn't the type to let go easily. She needed to win, to control the narrative. And if I didn't meet her, she'd just keep pushing. So I agreed. One last time. I met her at a small cafe downtown. Neutral ground. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, gripping her coffee like it was an anchor. She looked wrecked. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back messily. No muck-up. A stark contrast to the polished, confident woman who once turned heads at every event. Mark, she breathed as I sat down. I said nothing, just watched her. She fidgeted. I don't even know where to start. Try explaining why you did it, I said flatly. She flinched. I was stupid. I made a mistake. I leaned back. A mistake? Jessica, you didn't trip and fall into Adam's arms. You made a choice. Over and over again. Her lip trembled. I didn't mean to hurt you. I let out a dry laugh. Then why did you? She stared at the table. I don't know, she whispered. I shook my head. You do. You just don't want to say it. She looked up, eyes desperate. Mark, please. I was lost. I felt unappreciated. Like we were stuck. I wasn't thinking. I exhaled slowly. You know what's funny? You could have talked to me. We could have worked through whatever you were feeling. Instead, you lied. You betrayed me. And now you want sympathy. Her face twisted with frustration. It wasn't like that. You were always busy, always focused on work, on planning things. I needed something exciting. I nodded slowly. And how's that working out for you? She fell silent. I took a sip of my coffee. Why am I here, Jessica? She swallowed hard. I want another chance. I froze. She reached across the table, gripping my hand. We built something together, Mark. Years. You can't just throw that away. I love you. I pull my hand back. No, you don't. Her breath hitched. Ido. I shook my head. You love winning. You love the idea of having a perfect life, of being in control. But you don't love me. If you did, we wouldn't be here. Tears welled in her eyes. Mark, I could be better. We can be better. I stared at her, at the woman I once thought was my forever. But she wasn't. She was just another lesson. No, Jessica, we can't. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Please, she whispered. I'll do anything. I stood up, tossed a few bills on the table. It's over. She shook her head. Mark, I looked her dead in the eyes. Go home, Jessica, or wherever the hell you're staying now. Just let it go. I turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard a soft sob, but I didn't turn back. I never would. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.